Yibunei HaMikdash Hirtzio inte malai Okor les ozman.
Welcome to our channel. If this is your first time watching our channel, please consider to like, share, subscribe, hit the bell button, and leave some comments. In this video, Rabbi Kolakowski, affectionately known as the Koblenzer Rebbe, will be discussing the 4 mitzvos of Purim, as well as some customs of Purim. Let's watch.
Baruch Haba, welcome everyone. We are approaching the holiday of Purim, which is the most joyous holiday of the Jewish calendar. If this is your first time watching our channel, please consider to like, share, subscribe, and hit the bell button for updates. And also put comments in the comments section. We often will make videos just based on comments in the comments section, including questions we receive in the comments section. The holiday of Purim is considered the most joyous holiday of the Jewish calendar. It is one of the 2 major rabbinical holidays, including Hanukkah, and it is the older of the 2. It celebrates the victory of the Jewish community that was facing genocide during the reign of the Persian Empire, and how Queen Esther was the heroine of the story, together with either her uncle or her cousin, or according to many opinions, her husband, Mordechai. We celebrate Purim with 4 rabbinical commandments that are required for every Jewish person to perform, as well as many customs. We'll go over the 4 commandments, and then some of the customs, as well as some insights into the holiday. The 4 mitzvos, the 4 commandments of Purim, are as follows. 1 is called Mikra Megillah, the reading of the scroll, meaning the book of Esther from the Bible. 1 is Matanos Lavyonim, gifts to the poor. Another is Mishloach Manos, sending gifts to your friends. And finally, Seudas Purim, the festive meal of Purim. All of these mitzvos must be performed on the day of Purim, and additionally, the reading of the Megillah is also performed the night of Purim, which is the night before. So this year, Purim falls on the 14th of March, which is also the 14th of Adar this year. Happens that March and Adar pretty much coincide, although March is longer than Adar. And so that means that the night of the 13th, we also read the Megillah. However, the other 3 mitzvos of Purim, one may not fulfill during the night. They must be fulfilled during the day. However, 2 of them may be fulfilled through a messenger, an agent, performing this mitzvah on your behalf. We will go through each of these one by one. The mitzvah of Mikra Megillah, reading of the scroll of Esther. The book of Esther is one of the later books of the Hebrew Bible. It is written in Hebrew, but has many Persian loan words in the book. So you'll find many words that you will not generally find in the earlier books of the Bible, although you may find these words in other later books of the Bible, such as Ezra, Nehemiah, Daniel. Among the words that you find that is a Persian loan word is pur, which means the lot, the lottery. And so the plural of pur is Purim, and that is where the name of the holiday comes, as is recorded in the book of Esther. The requirement is to either read or listen to someone reading the book of Esther from a handwritten scroll that was written on parchment according to the laws of writing books of the Bible, including books of the Torah, both at night and during the day, and blessings are recited both before and under certain circumstances after this reading. Before the reading, there is a bracha al Mikra Megillah, Blessed art thou, O Lord, our God, King of the universe, who has sanctified us with his commandments and commanded us concerning the reading of the scroll. The next two will be familiar to those who are familiar with the brachos, the benedictions recited for the Hanukkah lighting. She'asa nisam lavosenu. Blessed art thou, O Lord, our God, King of the universe, who performed miracles for our ancestors at this season during those times. And the Shechianu, blessed art thou, O Lord, our God, King of the universe, who has caused us to live and endure and reach this season. The Shechianu blessing is recited pretty much on every holiday and also at other special occasions. And She'asa Nisim is only recited on Hanukkah and Purim. After the reading of the Megillah, if there is a minyan, if there is a quorum, and we will discuss what constitutes a quorum for the Mikra Megillah, then there's another blessing, which is a longer blessing that is recited after the reading. However, if someone is reading the Megillah with less than 10 Jewish adults present, then the blessing at the end is not recited. Generally, everyone recites that blessing at the end when a minyan is present, but the blessings at the beginning are only generally recited by one person who is reading the Megillah, and the other people respond Amen. However, if you have your own Megillah and you're reading along, a kosher Megillah, you may recite the blessings on your own and also answer Amen to each blessing, meaning you'll say the blessing a little bit faster than the person who is leading the reading, and then you could say Amen at the end. If one does not have access to a kosher Megillah, there is an opinion that one may read it from a printed book, or one may listen to a live reading that is over a telephone or over a live internet connection. Listening to a recording does not fulfill the mitzvah of reading the Megillah. However, it can be helpful if you have a kosher Megillah and you don't know how to read very well, but you can basically read the letters and you want to repeat the words even quietly to yourself while listening to a recording. That could help you fulfill the mitzvah. And so that would be the usefulness of listening to a recording. The requirement is to hear the entirety of the Megillah. There's a discussion in the Talmud how much of the Megillah one is required to hear. And the final law, which is the decided law, is that it is required to hear the entirety of the Megillah, both night and day. If one is only able to hear it once, the daytime is more preferable, meaning, let's say someone is in an institution and a volunteer is able to come either night or day. It is preferable to have the day reading than to have the night reading if you only have one. The reading of the Megillah may be done any time at night and any time of day on Purim. In ancient times, sometimes the reading of the Megillah could be read earlier in the week. However, that practice is no longer followed. We will discuss at the end of the video the idea of Shushan Purim, which is the 15th of Adar, and how that corresponds to the mitzvahs of Purim in walled cities, which include Jerusalem. The next mitzvah of Purim is Matanos Le'Evyonim, gifts to the poor. Since it says gifts to the poor in plural, it is understood that gifts must be given to at least two poor people who are technically poor according to the understanding of Jewish law, that they would have the status that is called evyon, which is a particular level of poverty in which a person is unable to support him or herself by his or her own means. The generally accepted custom is that one should give enough of a gift that this Jewish person can celebrate the holiday of Purim and purchase food for Purim. It's customary to give monetary gifts, although food gifts could technically also be acceptable for Matanot Levyonim. Since it is a very serious issue as far as who is considered halachically an Evyon, the best practice is to find a reliable and reputable Jewish organization to fulfill this mitzvah for you. Meaning that you would give the donation ahead of Purim, and that organization would distribute the money on the day of Purim. Additionally, once one fulfills that obligation, then the person may also give to other poor people, whether Jewish or not, and whether they have the technical indigent status of Evyon or other levels of poverty that might be less poor. Additionally, one may give gifts to anyone, both of money and of food. And what we generally say is Kol haposhet yad nosnim lo. Anyone who extends his hand asking for charity, we give him something on Purim, even if it's a small amount. But as far as the mitzvah of Matanos Levyonim, there is a dispute whether it is sufficient to give a small gift or whether one should give the amount of which one could buy, let's say, a piece of bread and something to eat it with, some margarine or some fish or meat. And as I recall, it was generally understood that when I was a child, that was about $4.50. Maybe now it's a little bit more. And so at that time, one would fulfill in the best way the mitzvah of Matanos Levyonim, giving about $9. As things have gotten to be a little bit more expensive, maybe $10 or $11 or $12 would be sufficient to fulfill that in the best way to give to a reputable organization. However, the more one gives, the more one is blessed. We were off some of the Hasidic masters taught that whatever amount one gives to Matanos Levyonim, he will receive 1,000-fold back in his livelihood the coming year. And so certainly it is better to give more money to Matanos Levyonim. Additionally, we are told that whatever one spends on Mishloach Manos, whatever one spends on giving to your friends who are not poor, one should certainly spend more on Matanos Levyonim because that is the bigger mitzvah. And certainly, whatever one spends for customs of Purim, such as costumes and things like that, definitely one should spend much more money on Matanos Levyonim than for costumes and things like that. And we will discuss the custom of wearing costumes later. It is understood that one may also fulfill the mitzvah of Matanos Levyonim, even if one does not live in a walled city, by giving to a messenger who will deliver it in a walled city. And it is a pious practice to do both. Certainly to give to poor people in Jerusalem. The next mitzvah we will discuss is Mishloach Manos Ish L'Re'ehu, sending gifts, one person, one man, to his friend. It is generally understood that since the gifts are in the plural, but the friends are in the singular, that the requirement is to give 2 gifts to one friend, and manos are understood to be food gifts. It should be food that is ready to eat, and ideally something that will be enjoyed at the Purim Suda. Quite often people will give very lavish mishloach manos, and that is not really necessary. What is much better, as we said, is perhaps even to fulfill the mitzvah of mishloach manos just by giving a few mishloach manos. And then when it comes to matanos lavyonim, when it comes to gifts to the poor, much more should be given as gifts to the poor. I would recommend, as far as gifts to the poor, as far as what are reputable organizations, the one that I have been taught to give since my youth is an organization called Od Yosef Chai. And they do have a website and they accept PayPal. That is how I fulfill the mitzvah of Matanos Lavyonim. I also like to give to some other organizations such as Kupat Ha'ir and Ezras Yisrael, particularly if they're going to be distributing in Jerusalem. Some of the Hasidic masters taught that whatever amount one gives to Matanos Lavyonim, he will receive 1,000-fold back in his livelihood the coming year. And so certainly it is better to give more money to Matanos Lavyonim. Additionally, we are told that whatever one spends on mishloach manos, whatever one spends on giving to your friends who are not poor, one should certainly spend more on matanos lavyonim, because that is the bigger mitzvah. And certainly, whatever one spends for customs of Purim, such as costumes and things like that, definitely one should spend much more money on matanos lavyonim than for costumes and things like that. And we will discuss the custom of wearing costumes later. It is understood that one may also fulfill the mitzvah of Matanos Lavyonim, even if one does not live in a walled city, by giving to a messenger who will deliver it in a walled city. And it is a pious practice to do both. Certainly to give to poor people in Jerusalem. The next mitzvah we will discuss is Mishloach Manos Ish L'Reyehu, sending gifts, one person, one man, to his friend. It is generally understood that since the gifts are in the plural, but the friends are in the singular, that the requirement is to give 2 gifts to one friend, and manos are understood to be food gifts. It should be food that is ready to eat, and ideally something that will be enjoyed at the Purim Suda. Quite often people will give very lavish mishloach manos, and that is not really necessary. What is much better, as we said, is perhaps even to fulfill the mitzvah of mishloach manos just by giving a few mishloach manos. And then when it comes to matanos lavyonim, when it comes to gifts to the poor, much more should be given as gifts to the poor. I would recommend, as far as gifts to the poor, as far as what are reputable organizations, the one that I have been taught to give since my youth is an organization called Od Yosef Chai. And they do have a website and they accept PayPal. That is how I fulfill the mitzvah of Matanos Lavyonim. I also like to give to some other organizations such as Kupat Ha'ir and Ezras Yisrael, particularly if they're going to be distributing in Jerusalem. However, as we said, it is ideal to give to anyone who asks, so one should have either dollar bills or quarters, whatever one can afford if one is going to be in a large Jewish community where it's expected that people will be asking for money. Back to the subject of Mishloach Manos. It is often said that Mishloach Manos should be two items that have different blessings recited on them. There is no reason to do this. I believe this was something that was invented just to teach children about what blessings are recited on different foods. Nonetheless, it does not hurt to do this, but it is not necessary. And so, if you give a cookie, like a Hamantash is the popular cookie, and a piece of candy, according to many opinions, technically that would be sufficient, although others say it should at least one of the Matanos Mishloach Manos will go back, cut. At least one of the Mishloach Manos should be something more considerable, let's say a piece of meat or a piece of fish that is ready to eat, and so therefore maybe some deli meat or some smoked fish that's ready to eat, together with a piece of bread, a challah roll, something, should be given to at least one person if one can afford it. If one cannot afford it, though, it's sufficient to, let's say, give a hamantash and an apple or an orange or a banana or something. Even just an orange and a banana, since they're two different brachas, could technically be sufficient. The mitzvah is to give it, not necessarily to eat it. The eating is the Purim Suda. And so therefore, in an institutional setting, it is the best practice to, let's say, have the person reading the Megillah in the institution have these items, give it to the person in the institution, have the person give it back, or have them pass it all around. This way they've each given to the next person. If one is not sure if all the people are Jewish, perhaps it's better to hand it and hand it back, hand it and hand it back, hand it and hand it back, or hand it back and hand it back. This way they're all fulfilling the mitzvah. Some people sometimes will just trade their meals one with another just to fulfill the mitzvah. And the final mitzvah of Purim is the Seudas Purim, the meal of Purim. All that is really required during this meal is to eat some bread. However, it is also understood that one should become inebriated on Purim, drinking wine, and ideally one should eat a lavish feast that includes bread, wine, fish, soup, a meat course, and some sort of a side dish. We will discuss what are the customs later on. Although it is a pious practice to enjoy a meal on the night of Purim, one does not fulfill the mitzvah by eating a meal at night. And one must still, nonetheless, eat a meal during the day, although it can be done any time of the day. Generally, it is customary to eat the meal closer to the evening. However, since this year Purim is Friday, the meal would be eaten earlier. And most likely, one should not drink too much, or perhaps not even at all, on Purim this year, due to it being Friday. Especially if one has to drive anywhere, one should never drink and drive. And perhaps one could have a little bit to drink just before Shabbos begins, before going to synagogue, if one is not driving. Obviously, in an institution, one may not drink alcohol, and so it would be sufficient to drink grape juice even if one does not become inebriated. There are opinions that it is sufficient to take a nap to have that little sense of inebriation as well. And of course, certainly if someone has a problem with addictions, he or she should not be drinking alcohol if he or she is an alcoholic. As any meal, one should wash, make the bracha of Al Natilas Yadayim, and then on the bread hamotzi. The hamotzi covers most of the meal except for the dessert, and at the end recite the 4 blessings of the grace after meals. In the second blessing of the grace after meals, as well as in the liturgical prayers of Purim, we add the prayer Al Hanisim, which is for the miracles, with the same introduction as we have on Hanukkah, but a special liturgical reading for Purim that is added in the second blessing of the grace after meals and in the penultimate blessing of the Amida Shmona Esrei prayer, which is Modim. Both of them are prayers of thanksgiving, Noda Lecha and Modim. So those are the 4 mitzvos of Purim. Let's discuss the customs of Purim. The most universal custom of Purim is Tainus Esther, the fast of Esther, that we fast on the day before Purim. So this year, the 13th of Adar falls on a Thursday, and so we fast on Thursday. Some people have a custom of fasting for 3 days, because Esther fasted for 3 days. Generally, what would be done is the Monday before Purim, or this year, since it falls on a Thursday, perhaps the Thursday the week before, which would be, as I'm recording this, tomorrow, the 6th, and then the 10th is Monday, and then the 13th is Thursday, to fast maybe half a day on the 6th and the 10th, but the whole day on the 13th. That is not necessary, but it may be a pious practice if one is able to do so with his health intact. I say that the fast of Esther is a custom because it is not decreed by the rabbis the same way that the other fast days are. And so of all of the well-known communal fast days on the Jewish calendar, the fast of Esther is probably the least important because it's a custom, but because it is a universal custom, anyone who is healthy enough to fast must fast. Like any other fast day, there's special Torah reading and Haftarah reading in the afternoon for the fast day. And the prayer of Anenu is added in Mincha, in the personal prayer, and in Shachris, in the repetition of the prayer, and by Sephardic Jews, in both by Shachris and by Mincha in the personal prayer. There is also a custom to immerse in the mikveh before reading the Megillah, as well as the custom of giving in memory of the half shekel, of which generally is customary to give 3 half dollars if one lives in a country with $1, or other half coin in memory. Others say that it should actually be the amount of money of which the old half shekel would be, which is about $9 or $10 in American money today. And whether one should give 1 or 3 is a matter of dispute. But generally what people do is they will, in the synagogue, put some money into a general account and pick up the 3 half dollars that they have there and put it down and say Zecher l'machzis a shekel, that this is in memory of the half shekel, to make it clear that we're not fulfilling the actual mitzvah of the half shekel. The Kaf Chaim and others recommend also reading what we read as Parsha Shkolim and some prayers before doing this as well. And there's some different customs whether this should be done on the fast of Esther, the 13th, or on Purim itself, the 14th. And some say it could actually be done even earlier, any time in the month of Adar. As we mentioned, there are liturgical changes on the day of Purim, which include a Torah reading. This is the only Torah reading of the year that has only 9 verses. Generally, the least amount of verses that should be read in the synagogue are 10. But because this particular passage has only 9 verses, we read 9. meaning 3, 3, and 3 for each of the people called to the Torah. This is done before the reading of the Megillah in the morning service on Purim, which this year is the 14th. It's always the 14th of Adar, but it's the 14th of March as well this year, 2025, according to the Common Era. When it comes to the mitzvah of Purim, there are other customs. So that is actually a rabbinical decree to read the Torah on Purim, which shows that it is a major rabbinical holiday. Just being a rabbinical holiday does not make it a minor holiday. Both Purim and Hanukkah are major rabbinical holidays. Doesn't mean that they're biblical holidays, although of course Purim is in the Bible, but when we say biblical, we mean from the Torah. But their root is in biblical law that requires us to follow rabbinical law, which is something that we see actually mentioned in the book of Esther, that the book of Esther is and the holiday of Purim is compared to the fast days, meaning that it is required to follow as a rabbinical law, just like the fast days, other than Yom Kippur, which is biblical Torah law. All the other fast days are of rabbinical origin, and yet they are mentioned in the Bible, in the book of Zechariah, and here in the book of Esther. There are various customs about which foods should be eaten at the meal on the Purim meal. Like every religious Jewish holiday meal, there is bread, wine, or grape juice if one cannot drink alcohol, fish, soup, a meat course, and generally some sort of a side dish, like farfel or tzimmus, something like that. The other famous food of Purim as a dessert is hamantashen, which are triangle cookies with some kind of filling in the inside of them. As far as what food should be eaten at the meal, this is one of the 3 times a year when meat kreplach are served in the soup, the others being the day before Yom Kippur and Hoshana Rabbah. And so kreplach means dumplings, meat covered with dough, kind of like a wonton. And those should be eaten in the soup on the day of Purim at the meal, according to the Ashkenazic custom. Another custom is to have stuffed cabbage, which is also eaten at other joyous times, such as on Simchas Torah. This is known as cholupchis. It's from the Polish word halubki. So that would be cabbage stuffed with ground meat. Usually ground beef, but could be chicken or turkey. Interestingly, around the same time of year, Irish Americans enjoy, for St. Patrick's Day, corned beef and cabbage. And many people celebrate that holiday in the Catholic calendar, even non-Catholics, with corned beef and cabbage, as well as drinking alcohol. What people don't know is that the origin of corned beef and cabbage being a St. Patrick's Day tradition actually comes from the celebration of Purim. In Ireland, they did not eat corned beef, but generally would eat some sort of a pork dish. I'm not sure exactly how they prepared it, with cabbage. Being that many Irish Americans lived in the Lower East Side of Manhattan, which was a Jewish community, they would buy corned beef from the kosher Jewish delicatessens and eat that with the stuffed cabbage that was traditional for Purim. And it seems that corned beef was a Purim tradition at least in America and perhaps in Europe, in the Jewish community long before it was an Irish American tradition. And so the actual origin of corned beef and cabbage is not Irish, but rather Jewish. During the meal, many people have the custom to sing Nishmas Kol Chai, even though it is not part of our liturgy on Purim, as it is on the Sabbath and the major biblical holidays. Nonetheless, this could be added as part of the liturgy for the meal, as well as Psalm 22, which is linked to Purim according to the Jewish tradition, and the hymn of Shoshanas Yaakov, or the whole hymn of Asher Heini. Asher Hefer. Some also have the custom of singing Sola Kokashmar, which is related to a week before Purim being the yard site of Rabbi Isaac of Kalev, as well as of Moshe Rabbeinu. And so, a week later, I guess would have been the end of his Shiva on Purim, and so therefore, to sing the song of Rabbi Isaac of Kalev. Many people also have the custom of smoking cigarettes or cigars on Purim, even if one does not smoke all year, but that the prayers go up in the smoke, and that the Baal Shem Tov taught that they're very fine nitzotzos, very fine sparks of holiness in tobacco that can be elevated by smoking with the proper intentions. And many people do not do this anymore now that we learned that smoking tobacco is not healthy. But some people who do not engage in this practice all year might do so on Purim, but others do not. The most famous custom of Purim is wearing costumes. Children may wear costumes anytime during Purim. It is generally understood that during prayers, particularly listening to the Megillah, one should wear his Sabbath finery to hear the Megillah. So if someone, a Hasidic man who is married, should wear a shtreimel and the bekisha. But if one wants to wear a colored bekisha that one might also wear, particularly a rabbi might wear on the Sabbath or holidays, that could be acceptable as well. And then during the meal on Purim, people might dress up in different costumes. There are many reasons stated as to why we wear costumes on Purim, which we could discuss at a later time in another video. Finally, I would like to discuss Shushan Purim. Any city that was a walled city since the times of Joshua, as well as the city of Shushan and the city of Jerusalem, of which may or may not have been walled since the time of Joshua, the son of Nun, the student of Moses. But all of those cities, of which several cities are included according to Jewish tradition, read the Megillah and celebrate Purim on the 15th of Adar instead of the 14th. This is already mentioned in the Megillah that the walled cities should observe Purim on the 15th day of Adar. This was because in the city of Shushan, they fought a war for one more day and rested on the 15th, as opposed to outside of Shushan, that the war ended on the 13th, and so the holiday was celebrated on the 14th. Satmar Rebbe, Rabbeinu Yol, Sechusi Galeinu Malchal Yisrael Amen, said that the main Purim in heaven is Shushan Purim, because that is the Purim of Jerusalem. And so Shushan Purim is a very special day. In many Hasidic communities, particularly the Satmar Rebbe, insisted that on Shushan Purim one should also wear Sabbath clothes. Even though one may go to work on Shushan Purim, he should wear Sabbath clothes on Shushan Purim, or a costume, and celebrate Shushan Purim as a festive holiday. So on a normal year, Shushan Purim in Jerusalem has all of the same laws as Purim outside of Jerusalem. If one is visiting Jerusalem and spending the whole day and night in Jerusalem, one follows the custom of Jerusalem to hear the Megillah on the 15th and do all the mitzvahs of Purim on the 15th. However, this year, as again we said in the Common Era 2025, we have what is called Purim Mishulash. 3 days of Purim. Why? Because Shushan Purim falls on Shabbat, on Saturday. And the Megillah may not be read on Saturday according to rabbinical decree. So we have a very interesting way that we celebrate the Purim Mishulash. So for those of us who are outside of Jerusalem and outside of a walled city, we have to do everything on Friday, which makes it a little bit difficult, as we said before. Can't really drink and so forth when you're trying to get ready for the Sabbath. It would be kind of out of the ordinary and disrespectful to the Sabbath. And so we do everything, the Megillah, Matanos Levionim, Shalach Manos, and Sudas Purim on the 14th. Now, in Jerusalem and other walled cities, how do they do it? So the answer is as follows. So this year is interesting that all Jewish people around the world read the Megillah the same day. So in Jerusalem, they will be reading it Thursday night and Friday morning, the Megillah. They also do the mitzvah of Matanos Levionim, I believe, on the 14th. On the 15th, in Jerusalem, they will say Al Hanisim and read the Torah reading that we read on the 14th after the regular Torah reading. And that's really all they're doing on Shabbat. That's different. Some people might trade their food on that day just to kind of fulfill Matanos Levionim, Mishloach Manos, but it's generally understood that Mishloach Manos should be done on the 16th. And then this Shabbos, anyway, you'll have the Suda. And so there's nothing really special about that. It's something we do every Shabbat, every Sabbath. So in Jerusalem, on the 16th, they will fulfill the mitzvah of Sudas Purim and also Mishloach Manos. And so that is the day when they will celebrate the Purim meal. And so the various mitzvahs of Purim and customs of Purim are stretched along 3 days in Jerusalem and other walled cities. As we said, Satmar Rebbe and others encouraged people outside of Jerusalem to still celebrate Shushan Purim. Generally, a lot of people will still give an extra Mishloach Manos and eat a Suda on Shushan Purim, even though it is not obligatory, but is a pious practice, and to wear Sabbath clothes on Shushan Purim, even outside of Jerusalem. This is not a custom very common outside of Hasidic communities, but it is a good pious custom. And with that being said, since it's Purim Mishulash, in those Hasidic communities, the Sabbath clothes will still be worn on Sunday the 16th, even in America or in Bnei Brak and other places outside of Jerusalem. The custom of Rav Moshe Wolfson, Zecher Tzaddik Livracha, was to go to Jerusalem, and many of his Hasidim would follow, on such a year when there is a Purim Mishulash, to enjoy the fullness of a Purim Mishulash. And many people have that custom. I'm not sure this year, but it would seem that many people would probably be enjoying Purim Mishulash in Jerusalem, even those who are not from Jerusalem. And as we said, the Satmar Rebbe said the main Purim is in heaven is the Purim of Jerusalem, And so therefore even those of us outside of Jerusalem should feel unity with Jerusalem by celebrating on Sunday as well in some manner. And as we said, wearing the Sabbath clothes, even if one has to go to work. If you have any questions about Purim, please ask in the comments below. Thank you for watching. God bless. Please like, share, and subscribe, comment, and we'll see you later. All right, how do I turn this off? This one.
We hope you enjoyed this content. This channel has over 5,000 videos, including Torah commentary, podcasts, footage of Jewish and historical events, and much more. We are sure you will find more videos you will enjoy. Please like, share, subscribe, hit the bell button, and comment. Rabbi Kolakowski often makes videos based on questions in the comment section, so you might have a video made just for you. By helping this channel grow, you are helping to spread Torah. God bless.
Yibunei HaMikdash, Hirtzia in the Mala.